You are going behind the buzz. It's a Public Fit Theater Company's occasional podcast where we get together and chat about the myriad processes that go into the production of our season of plays and staged readings. It's season number 4, episode 6. And I'm APF producing director Joe Kucan, joined as ever by APF's artistic director Anne-Marie Pereth.
Hi there.
And today we're going to be talking with the secret sauce of Las Vegas theater, actor Annette Houlihan Verdolino, about Ireland, the Irish, the Moors, the peat, the bogs, the all that
the accent
stuff, and also her role in our upcoming production of Brian Friel's Dancing at Lughnasa, opening April 12th with a 3-week run downtown at the Art Square Theater. Art Square, that's Vegas Theater Company's space, and this production is actually in partnership with VTC. What does that mean, AM partnership?
Well, we have a really nice working relationship with that theater company because our first production that we ever did was Foxfinder about 10 years ago, and we produced in that space. Yeah. And so instead of just going over to the space and four-walling, they support us in a lot of different ways. Even this morning, Daz, the artistic director, asked if, we needed help with the building of the set. And I said, no, we got it covered. But
really? We do. We need help. We need help. What are you doing?
But they, on this particular project, we carried the heavier load of creating the artistic vision of the play, but they help us with marketing. They help us get the word out. And any holes in production, they help us fill up those holes.
And this will be what? This is our 4th show down there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all the shows that we've done there. We did Becky Shaw there.
Foxfinder, Becky Shaw.
Incognito.
Yeah.
And now Dancing at Lughnasa. Yep, that's right.
So this is number 4. Why do you remember the thought process that went into selecting Lughnasa and placing it in the 10th season?
I did. I am really attracted to this play because of the Chekhovian nature of the play, and when I started to research...
Okay, pause, scratch the record. Chekhovian. Let's insult everybody's intelligence and talk about the definition of Chekhovian real quick.
Okay, well, actually, Chekhov is a playwright, and he wrote plays that had a very hyper-realistic... look to them. There was a lot of humor in the plays.
Sort of the start of naturalism in theater.
Well, the start of modern realism about 120 years ago. And it's usually these stories center around family life. A lot of times in Chekhovian plays, not a lot happens. There's a lot of talking and pining and reminiscing. And so Brian Friel is actually known as the Chekhov of Ireland. Yeah. The writing in this play is beautiful. The way he represents women in this play is quite nice. I know he's modeling it after, I think, his own family and especially his 2 aunts. But what's really beautiful about this play, if I could go on just for a little bit,
please,
is when I was doing my research about the play, oftentimes when you think of Irish plays, it rains a lot, and they're quite sad, and they're dreary. They're dreary. There's a melancholy nature, and so what I think playwrights like Friel,
Sean O'Casey ruined it for everybody.
Yes, and McDonough have done is they have found the humor in the Irish culture. But what Friel was really trying to do, I think, with this play is when he imagined it being actually set in the Mediterranean where the sun is shining. Yeah. And it's not raining in Ireland. And he's hearkening back. It's a memory play from the perspective of Michael, which I think is probably a lot of him. Yeah. And he's hearkening back to the best times in our life. And we don't often know that these are the best times of our life. Of our lives until it's already passed and we're living another reality. And so I think that's what this experience is with these sisters is while, yes, there's clucking and arguing and disagreements and there's some undermining that might be happening amongst all of them. I think it really is a time when they're all together, they're all safe, they all love each other, and no matter what's happening on the outside world, no matter how society is perceiving these particular sisters because of the given circumstances in the script.
What years is that in?
In the 1930s,
Yeah.
they love each other and they're enjoying each other's company.
Well, that's a pretty good sort of umbrella about the play, but somebody here knows it better than we do.
Absolutely.
You want to bring Annette in?
Yes.
Let me introduce really quickly Annette Houlihan Verdolino.
Sure. Houlihan
Emphasis on the Houlihan. Annette Houlihan Verdolino is making a triumphant return to the APF stage after bringing laughter and some tears to audiences as the mystical goat Wheezy in our stage reading of Audrey Cephal's Alabaster. Over the last holiday, she was disguised as Sheldon Wynn in a very Vegas Christmas Carol over at Majestic. She's been all over the arts district in The Sandman and Carrie, Accidental Death of an Anarchist, and Miss Margarita's Way, Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. Yeah. Annette's originally from Queens and is a graduate of the High School of Performing Arts at NYU, busting out in the finest downtown fringe and cabaret and burlesque. How she settled in Las Vegas, I will never truly understand, as she is also a proud dual citizen of both the U.S. and Ireland. Hello, Annette. And it's Ireland we want to talk about today. I mean, we'll get back to the play in a second, but I
speak for all of Ireland.
Well, you just
no.
Yeah, good.
All of Irish America.
Good.
The closest that we have.
We
now.
We know that they're a monolith and they all sort of speak as one mind. But we'll get to the play in a second. You just got back from a trip from over there. Yeah, was that planned for the show or just a lucky coincidence?
It was a lucky coincidence. I go to Ireland every year to visit my family, usually around Christmas holiday time, that kind of stuff. But I was doing a show this year around Christmas time, very Vegas Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So I kind of postponed it, and so it just so happened I knew I was going to be there. I was spending a little extra time. I said, "Well, I'm there. I might as well go up to Donegal, go to Glentees, the town that the show is based in. It's called Ballybeg in the play, but it really is this town of Glentees." And I contacted, there's a St. Connell's Museum there. I contacted them and said, "Hey, I'm going to be coming up, for better for worse. Are you going to be open?" And they were going to be closed. However, Laura, the woman who has run the museum, contacted me. She said, "Oh, we'll have someone come meet you. We'll open it just for you," because that's what the Irish people do.
Oh, that's shout out to our hospitality Ireland listeners.
Insane. Yeah, so I was able to.
So you got a private tour of this?
I got a private tour of the museum. I got a private tour of the town by a wonderful woman, Anne McClune. She was incredible. She met me at my B&B. We took a walk through the town. She gave me basically a history of the town, walking through the streets, telling me what happened to the buildings. Her relatives, her aunts and grandaunts, actually worked with the actual McClune sisters, who were Brian Field's actual family aunts,
so you literally,
who the Mundys were based on.
You literally went back to the source.
Oh, the source. Yes.
Holy cow!
And they couldn't be prouder and more,
This
of
is
the play.
Of the play, of their native son, of the
Did you know this, Emery? Did you know this?
I knew that you went to Ireland, and I remember seeing the pictures.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how closely linked to the story that visit was. Yeah. I had no idea.
And the Brian Friel, the foundation is based there. They're currently in fundraising because they're going to renovate the station house in Glentees and make that basically like the library and archives of all of Brian Friel's works, and making a real center for people to come and research and
How big a presence does he have in that town?
Pretty huge. I mean, he is quite famous.
And every so often, when a story would appear in the Donegal Inquirer about our own leper priest, as they called him, because Ballybeg was afraid of him. The whole of Donegal was afraid of him. It was only natural that our family would enjoy a small share of that fame. It gave us that little bit of status in the eyes of the parish. And it must have helped my aunts to bear the shame mother had brought to the household by having me, as it was called back then, Out of wedlock.
I remember when I was working on Beauty Queen of Leenane.
Yeah.
And
Not by Brian Friel. That's a
Yes,
McDonough.
that's by Martin McDonough.
Martin McDonough.
And I cast Daz, and one of the reasons why I cast Daz was because he was involved in the second production with the original director from the Broadway production.
And the
also I
Druid
wasn't
Company,
Irish,
too.
and I didn't know what was Irishy. You know, I was like, I was like, what
Irishy. I'm trying to decide whether that's racist or not. Irishy. Well, as our resident Irish person, racist or not racist?
No. I think it's a very, you know.
Oh, well, I wanted to make sure that there was some cultural influence in the play. And so I'm wondering, just because of your cultural background and this visit, are there and I don't want to get ahead of what Joe has intended, but are there things in the play or in the production that are reminiscent of that visit?
I think our dramaturg, Leah, did an amazing job of kind of consolidating. I worked with her. In fact, before I went, she sent me a list of questions to ask, you know, about the play, things like pronunciations and things like that. But I think I feel very privileged that I feel like I have all this history in my head, probably to the annoyance of many of my castmates, because I'll jump out and say, no, actually, you know, I'll do the Irish explaining of the play.
I think I'll bet
it's actually pronounced that way, or, you know, and actually this is really actually what they wore. That's not what they wore. That's, you know, things like that.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the cast now, just going down the list of people in that play. I can't think of anybody in that cast who wouldn't appreciate that level of detail and contribution.
No, absolutely not.
So you're probably not driving anybody crazy. And
I
think I have to.
And Willem also is very Irish.
Yeah,
so
we need to do a reprint of the program though to give you some more credit to like co-dramaturg or something, because it sounds like you've done some work above and beyond.
It didn't seem like work at the time. It was just pure pleasure. I mean, and. You know, Irish people are known for their storytelling, of course. And so I was learning bits about Irish history that I wasn't even aware of. But it was, you know, I wish every history lesson could be taught, you know, walking through the actual town.
Right.
And someone who's, you know, lived in the town, you know, all her life. She left and came back and is now a docent at the museum and stuff. So she was just absolutely marvelous getting the history of the town. And then we went to the actual house.
Wow.
Of the McLuhan sisters, the Mundy sisters, and took lots of pictures. It's sort of the outside has been sort of like fixed up, but the inside is in complete disrepair. And they'll, you know, they're planning on, you know, I think the original plan was to make that the museum and archives, but they needed quite a bigger space. So when that house eventually gets renovated, I think it'll be restored so people could basically come in and say, this is what the house looked like, you know, from...
Well, the scenic design,
Lughnasa,
because of the nature of Vegas Theater Company, it's a smaller venue, right?
Yeah.
And also the footprint of where the stage is small, and and then the actual space where you're playing is small. Mm-hmm. Are there artifacts or ideas that are reminiscent of the house?
Well, the set is still being constructed, but I feel like there's the hutch, right, or the china closet, or like where everything goes in that. I feel like every Irish house had one of those. I know my grandparents had one. You know, things like the turf fire. You know, like everyone, you know, burns turf in Ireland, even though they're not supposed to anymore. But they're
Was
still
that true?
doing
They're not
it.
supposed to anymore.
Well, they're making it illegal, I believe, to sell the turf. But you didn't hear it from me. But of course, that's made a terrific black market for turf now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, explain to everybody what turf is.
Turf
Some
is
people may not be
it's
familiar.
actually dirt. You know, it's the peat, and that they cut logs out of it and they dry it in the sun, and then you can use that to burn, because they didn't really have not a lot of wood
A lot of
in
woodlands
Ireland,
there,
right, or
yeah.
coal or anything like that. So that was like in your
Houses made of
rural Ireland,
stone
especially, that was their source of heat and fuel. You know, you have your one stove and you burn the turf, and that heats the whole.
Does turf
house,
burn
you know?
slowly like coal?
There's yes, there's some the pieces that are more dried out. My grandparents taught me this. The pieces are darker and more dried out. They'll burn faster but hotter. Mm-hmm. And then the ones that are more like still kind of moist a little, those will have a slow burn, and that'll keep you going through the day. You could leave that burn through the day and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it gives off this delicious smell, and it's saddened to think that Ireland won't have this smell anymore. But of course, it's better for the environment. Blah blah blah.
Is that the reasoning behind it? It's
Yeah,
environmental
the
concerns?
emissions of, you know, it's like coal. Like, you know, you think of like
Sure.
you know, like thick clouds of coal, smoke in the sky. So the
Well,
turf does
I'll start
that as
feeling
well.
bad about my fireplaces when when Mobile Exxon starts feeling bad about their emissions.
But it's still natural.
Yeah.
Not exactly a renewable resource, I guess, but yeah, but that lovely turf smell in Ireland is just. I wish we could have that in the theater, but
Can you describe it? I know it's sort of hard to describe.
it's like it's a
smells,
sweet, slightly sweet smell, but really like it's just earthy and warm, and it just smells like really like just like a gorgeous forest. I think like a gorgeous.
Okay, I'm
lush
gonna do some
forest,
smell design and see if I can
It
get
really
some
is.
essential oil that smells like turf, and then we're gonna put it in the theater.
That's a great idea.
I
actually.
know.
Yeah.
It really. I mean, I feel like as long as no one's allergic, that's that's always I'm always about that. But it really is something, and I don't think it's when you land in Ireland or if you go to you'll know as soon as you like.
You'll be like, oh, that's turf.
That's the turf smell. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even though it's being outlawed, we're still going to hopefully have some of that smell lingering.
Yeah.
Good. You talked a little bit about the house there that you visited. Now, in the play, they're not really in the town, right? In the play, this family is sort of separated. They're up on a hill, not necessarily in the middle of the woods, but they have some distance. They have an overlook.
not
I
too
think.
far because they
Yeah.
can still walk.
Right.
And in the town, to me it was a very short walk, but we were talking the whole time. Sort of up a main road and then turn left at would have been the workhouse originally, which is now a school. It was a workhouse, then a hospital, then it's now a school, and then up the road. So it's still walkable, but still enough outside the town to not be a town. And the house is called the Laurels because there's these gorgeous laurel trees that just completely frame the whole walk up there and completely surround the house.
Oh, that's
so
something.
they're surrounded by this lush and this greenery.
Well, my
in the
question was
house,
because
so-
that's actually that sort of separation is an element of the play. I think them being somewhat removed, not necessarily isolated or banished, but there is a separation there. Can you talk? We talk about spoilers on the podcast all the time and let people know that if they want to come and see the play completely fresh with no idea or sense of what's happening, probably now maybe shut us off and come back and listen
later.
again when you've seen the show. Can you talk a little bit just about the plot of the play itself and what that's when I talk about the separation of the family, what I'm sort of
What
implying?
happens to them? Sure. I mean, it centers on the five sisters, the five Mundy sisters.
Yeah.
And one of the sisters is a school teacher. Two of the sisters knit gloves for a living, which was very in Donegal known for the wool factories and the wool.
And they all live together in the same house.
They all live together in the same house.
All five of them.
All five of them, and one of the daughters has a son out of wedlock. Scandal.
Well, yeah, in the 20s it would be.
Yeah, one of the daughters is basically kind of the housekeeper and minds the chickens and things like that, and keeps the family buoyed up in spirits. That's me. And there's little boy, and then there's the narrator who voices the little boy, and then Father Jack, who is their older brother, who was a priest who went off to Uganda. And all of this is everything is based on actual fact and what actually happened to the family. So Father Jack returns home after 25 years from Uganda, in ill health, but gets better. And we learn later in from the narrators that he does pass away after a year or so, and then two of the sisters actually sneak off and go to London because they're no longer buying the hand knitted gloves, so. They're not going to want to work in the factory. They might not even get jobs in the factory. So they run off, and then and so it's the three sisters left in the house. Then we find out, and then there's the lover, the father of Michael, Jerry Evans, who's a Welshman who comes in and out of their lives at whim. So he comes and disturbs sort of the norm.
It sounds like it's just about the nature of a point in time where things are beginning to change.
Exactly right. A long-winded way of saying like we meet them and everything is sort of like everyone's got their job. Everyone is happy. Everyone is great. And the first thing we know is Father Jack comes in. He disturbs the
Sure.
norm. Then Jerry comes for a visit, so he's disturbing the norm. Then we find out that there's a glove that they're no longer going to be buying gloves. So we find out that job's going to be gone. Then we find out that the oldest sister, her job's going to be eliminated because the priest is not going to hire her back for the next year. Because at that time, the church was in charge of the board, the education board.
Yeah.
So the father, that Jack, who comes back from Uganda, who was no longer really Catholic priesty anymore.
Yeah,
So
he's
look
gone through a transition overseas.
So the priests of the town sort of punish the rest of the family by not hiring Kate back and not giving Jack any sort of jobs in the church and things like that.
So what's the title? I mean, these are poor women going through some despair and some change,
Right.
and then we're dancing. We're dancing at Lughnasa.
I know. I just realized it's so funny because the description of the play, it sounds like a sad play, but it's not. It's a play that shows, and Brian Friel has talked about this, about how sure they were a poor family, sure these difficulties were happening, sure they're Ireland in the 30s, sure there was political upheaval but there's such joy and such love and such celebration that happens just in the daily life. And so I think he wanted with his play to show that
Yeah.
despite all these things happening, to show that this family has such love and affection for each other in the simplest things. They're not wealthy people. They're not completely destitute, but they're not, they don't do well. He talks about someone of the groceries goes up a penny, and that kind of makes them a little nervous because
Yeah.
the prices are going up, so they're worried about that. But they still find such joy in the everyday. I mean, one thing I know just from my own family and people that I know in Ireland, you could be talking about the most terrible things, and then someone will just crack a joke.
Yeah.
You'll never go long without someone making a joke or making light or this dark humor. I think Martin McDonagh does that crazily well
Yeah.
in his plays that
Yeah.
are sometimes very violent and but are hilarious too.
I love all the cow references in McDonagh,
Oh.
and there's a cow reference in this play too.
Oh, there's a brown cow reference. There is,
I'm like, what is with the cow references?
Just because they're everywhere, I guess, probably.
Yeah, but every time they get mentioned in like a McDonagh play, the delivery is usually so hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I just crack up. I'm like, what's with this cow stuff?
You'd never guess what I met on the road out from the town. Talk about good luck. A cow with a single horn coming straight out the middle of its forehead.
You never did.
As God is my judge, walking along by itself, nobody near it.
Jerry.
And just as I was passing it, it stopped and looked me straight in the eye.
That was no pie you met, that was a unicorn.
Go ahead and mock. A unicorn has the body of a horse. This was a cow. A perfectly ordinary brown cow, except it had a single horn just here.
It's just funny,
It's funny.
Well, I want to bring in. I actually have a special guest that I'm going to sneak in and surprise everyone with. Yeah, I want to bring in the choreographer of the play, the woman who's actually
Speaking about
choreographed the dance.
dancing.
Yeah, who's speaking about dancing. So,
Yeah.
Emery Pereth.
Hello.
You want the big intro? You want a big intro?
Oh my.
Emery Pereth is the artistic director of Republic Theater Company. As the choreographer, you may have seen her. Do you want the whole thing? Can we just cut to you being the choreographer for Dancing at Lughnasa?
Yeah, you don't have to do it.
Okay.
I love it.
Talk
Though.
about
I have to
dancing,
say
right.
though, I love it when you do it with other people because it's so everybody blushes when you
Really?
do. Yes, I think it's such a nice way to bring everybody in. You don't have to do it for me, but
Okay.
I do love it when you do it for others.
What can I say to make you blush?
I know.
But you're the choreographer for the show Dancing at Lughnasa. It's right there in the title, Dancing.
Yes.
Is there? What sort of prep work did you do to create the dancing? I mean, and do you feel any pressure because it is right there in the title? It seems like that's like people are going to expect some dancing in this thing.
What's strange is prior to working on the show, yes, I did feel a little bit of pressure, but because I've been dancing since I was a little girl.
Almost nonstop.
Yeah, since I was about 10, I on and off, not in a professional way, but just, learning to dance. The pressure of creating dance didn't I didn't feel any sort of tentativeness with this because they're not professional dancers.
Right.
So the choreography didn't have to be, elevated or stylized in a way where everybody needed to hit their marks
Well,
in
and
such
it's all,
way.
and some of it's really primal. It's all, and
Yes.
a lot of it's very just sort of
So-
reactionary, and it's plot driven dancing.
Yes, but to say that I didn't feel pressure, I was in New York City, and I went and I watched several different versions of Lughnasa just to kind of get a feel for what other productions were doing. And then I, went on YouTube. I watched several different iterations on YouTube, and then I went back to the script. And I love. There's a phrase in the opening monologue about how they get really erratic. Michael says something. I wish I had the script with
Deranged.
me. Yes, it says that. Yes,
Yeah. They
He's,
say deranged.
yeah, he says that they get deranged when they dance. And so I thought about the dance in many layers. I thought it needs to be celebratory, based on the things that we've been actually talking about. I also thought it needed to. I feel they're in close quarters. They're living on the outside of their town. There's been the town has done some shaming of the sisters because one of the sisters has had a child out of wedlock, so she's not accepted by Catholic standards. Also, none of them are married and never will be married, so they're all considered old maids in that way, and they're not having a huge sexual life with other men or other women, right? So there's that repression element, and then also the uncle has come back from Africa, right? And so he's bringing that like tribal energy into the house, which
That's interesting. Tribal.
which is really frightening, especially to Kate because she's such a devout Catholic, and he's gone native. So there's that idea looming in the household. So I felt like the dance, and I'm just going to say I personally call it the batshit crazy dance.
Does that resonate, Annette? The batshit crazy dance?
Yes. That's a great way of summarizing, what you're trying to feel or
Right.
I think
convey.
do you start the dance?
Yes,
Yes.
Does your
Maggie
character
does,
your
yeah.
character starts the batshit crazy
Yeah.
dance?
Yeah. And I think each character, we talked about this too, has their own reason for breaking out into dance, And the play talks wonderfully about the, like what dancing means, how, when you don't have the words, when language no longer exists, there's the dancing,
I like the word primal. I think that's a
Yeah.
pretty important word for what happens to those five women in that moment. There's other dancing too, though. It's not just this primal eruption.
There's some stylized dancing because there's influences from the West, and anything goes is coming through the Marconi, the radio.
They have a new radio set, and that's completely changed their lives because all of a sudden they're getting news probably from all over the the world.
Right. So there's a dance to anything goes, and so in the style of swing, we have a swing dance in there, and then the way romance is expressed in the play is through dance. With Jerry and Chris, and also with Jerry and Agnes, and even Jerry has a moment with you, right? You want to get your hand on some of that dancing as well. I think the dance, while I was a little bit tentative, I don't feel like I was super intimidated by it.
Yeah. Is this? I'm listening to all of this. Jerry and Chris and Agnes and is this a love story in a way? I know it's a memory play, and Michael is telling us the story of his time growing up as a young boy with these five sisters and the effect that must have had on him. So I'm assuming there's I don't know, just a breakdown of what what it would be like to grow up in a estrogen-filled house like that as a small boy. But you're talking about Jerry who comes in and is it a love story?
Yes, but I don't think the love story is about the men. I think the love story is about the love that the women have for each other and how they're really protective of each other, and how they love Michael, like the small child in the play who is also narrating the play because
who grows up to be the narrator. Yeah.
It's a memory play. So in that way, I think it's a love story, but it's not a love story about pining over men in the way you think. I think what women have been conditioned in the early 1900s and throughout time, and until we go through these waves of feminism, is that the only way to survive in the world is one must focus on their beauty and their sexuality, right, in order to capture a man, in order to be successful, so that you don't die in poverty.
And here are 5 women.
Here are 5 women who are not married. Who
but are also living in
in
a restrictive environment that doesn't allow them to really use their sexuality, because they have a very Catholic, prescribed sort of understanding of what is proper for them in this time. Is that on the mark?
Yes, but I think that they still, have those feelings cannot be denied, and that feeling, it comes out.
Right, we're animals.
With, sensuality, So, but I was just thinking that the fact that they are 5 women who aren't, married, who have to support themselves. They have, no means of outside support. Like, Father Jack is a priest, and they have to talk in the play where they actually, whatever little money they make, they keep sending back to him, too. Whatever they have extra, they send back to Africa to help him in his mission.
We've been talking about Dancing at Lughnasa, Brian Friel's memory play about a family of sisters in rural Ireland. In partnership with Vegas Theatre Company, the play opens April 12th and runs for 3 weekends downtown at the Art Square Theatre. And then we'll close out our 10th season with Craig Wright's sentimental reunion story, The Pavilion, a stage reading at the end of June at the Clark County Library. Don't believe me? Well, visit us online at apublicfit.org to have all of your doubts erased.
What a remarkable thing that at the time for these women to not have, like in Donegal at the time, and you think about there's probably a lack of men too, because, World War I happened and a whole bunch of people got killed off, that all their boys got killed off. But that sounds terrible and dry to say it that way, but that's what happened. And men who would have been in Donegal at the time, a lot of them would have been absent anyway. They might have been coming back home every 6 months to, father more children and, be at home. But they would go off and work for 6 months at a time and leave all the men alone. So women in Donegal at the time were very used to being on their own. So it wasn't unusual for them to be alone at home with the kids, but it wasn't usual for them not to have, no other, man to support them.
So there are places here that for modern audiences to identify. This isn't just a museum piece.
No, it's real history. It really is real history.
Also, in our modern world, we still have a whole culture of people who are heavily fixated on their physicality in order to capture a mate, and that's a predominant thing, and we're receiving that sort of information all the time through the media and through social media, and so in that way, that narrative lives on.
Yeah, I'm imagining the Mundi sisters now with Facebook and Instagram.
Oh my gosh, so
and how their situation would be different.
They have a Facebook page where they sell gloves.
Right.
Yeah, they're instant.
Right, they're on Etsy selling gloves instead of
Yes.
They'll be fine.
Is it just a tear-jerking drama? Is there humor in this play?
Oh, there's tons of humor. Yeah, tons of humor.
Well, you said at the start that is the sort of the Irish way.
Yeah, and like you said, Chekhov. You read the plot synopsis on a page. You're like, geez, who's going to want to see this?
Yeah,
and then you see a production of it. And you're like, oh my, this was like hilarious and fun and warm, and I just loved the interaction. I mean, I have to say, like, I will fully admit, I did not like Chekhov for the longest time because I never saw an actual production. I would just read Chekhov in
they're
school
hard
and
reads.
stuff like
Yeah,
that, right?
they're so
I'd be
hard
like,
to
who
read.
wants to do this? And I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. And then seeing like a production of The Seagull for the first time done with such fresh eyes, downtown New York, and I was like, I get it now.
We saw a lovely
it's
production.
so between the lines.
We saw
Everything
a
is
lovely
so between the
production
lines.
of Uncle Vanya 9-10 years ago, and have been pining to sort of dip our toes into to Chekhov ever since. But it's hard, and there are a number of factors that are preventing us from doing it, and maybe Lughnasa as our first sort of tottering steps towards that kind of
daunting,
work. It is daunting.
When I talk to people about this play, Irish people about this play too, and I talk about how it's a play about all the things that aren't said, in Irish families, and everyone says, "Oh, that's so Irish." That's without an exception, everyone says that is so Irish when I talk to them about this play, because it is about all the things that aren't said, all the secrets that are kept, and all the ways that we wish we could reach out to someone, and then what stops us and why don't we? And like there might be like these looks that exchange between characters, and smiles,
the looks
and
and
that's
how
what
do
makes
you
the life
guys
of the
do
play.
it? How do you actors do that? Because I have seen just such successful productions, so many actors, and watching you guys in rehearsal too, being able to communicate the things that aren't said by not saying them, but we know exactly what's not being said. How do you do that? Where do you start in the process to create the things that aren't said in big neon letters so the audience knows what is not being said?
Well, some of it's script analysis. A lot of it is, some of it's the table work, reading it out loud with each other, and I'd say most of it is really just discovered on your feet, when you're looking, when you're with people and you're with other actors that are so open and trusting, and, Anne Marie's, as a director, probably has something to say about that.
Well, spoiler. Can I say
Sure.
some spoilers?
Spoiler alert.
Well, even in your moment, because the moments that I've seen the most are the ones that have been around dance. Mm-hmm. In your moment about her name starts with a B.
Oh, Bernie O'Donnell.
Bernie O'Donnell.
Bernie O'Donnell.
Bernie O'Donnell. Yes. And how maybe there was a bit of rivalry there, and then the man that got away. Mm-hmm. On the surface, you don't see that in that monologue prior to the dance. But when you do it in context of the play, I see huge loss, and I see all of your sisters experiencing that loss with you. And then also some of the things that have been crafted in rehearsal, how they are internalizing your loss and then making it personal for themselves, because none of them have gone off and gotten married like Bernie O'Donnell did to the Swede, right? Mm-hmm. They're all sitting there with you, pining for the ones that got away also. And that's all very, very clear in the story that you guys are telling. And that's not on the page when you read it.
And at the end of the night, there was a competition for best military two-step. And it was down to 3 couples. The local pair from Ardstraw. Wee Timmy and myself. Jeez, he was up to here on me. And Brian and Bernie. Oh, and they were just so beautiful. So stylish. You couldn't take your eyes off them. People stopped dancing just to gaze at them. And when they announced the winners, naturally, the local pair came first. And wee Timmy and myself came second. And Brian and Bernie came third. Bernie was stunned. Couldn't believe it. Wouldn't talk. Wouldn't speak to any of us for the rest of the night. She wouldn't even cycle home with us. She was right too. They should have won. They were so beautiful together.
Well, I'll ask you, did you spend a lot of time on table? And Emery and I, when we're directing, we spend probably too much time on table work. We spend a lot of time just sort of sitting and going over the script and talking about the why and the who and the this and the that and the why. And I get the impression from having worked with Barb and watching Barbara Brennan, who's the director of this production, having watched her work in the past, she likes to get on her feet pretty quickly.
Yeah, we didn't have that much table work, I have to say. We kind of started kind of plowing through, getting it blocked and stuff. That was like the first like sort of thing that we did. We spent like a rehearsal, discussion, sort of the overarching themes and talking about like like what if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we all kind of discovered it mostly from just interacting with each other.
I love also just in terms of like subtextual moments that I've seen in the text is that rivalry between Chris and Agnes.
Yeah.
And that's has been very, it's really well crafted. The work that Coco, who plays Agnes, she has an incredible moment in the show where she's very, very jealous about what's happening on the outside between Jerry and Chris. And it's a beautiful moment. But when you look on the page, you're like, Agnes, who's Agnes? Like,
right.
It almost seems on the page because she doesn't say as much as the other characters. I think she has the least amount of lines. I often wondered, I was really confused by Agnes on the page, but when you put Agnes on her feet, I feel so much loss for her.
Yeah.
Because she's living it right then in the moment. She's taking on, her sister, who there's some divergence there.
Right.
And
Rose,
and so she's taking on all of that. And then she's also having to protect her younger sister from Kate. So there's that bit of energy going on. And then she's brokenhearted all the time because she's overlooked and working hard. And I feel like that's part of the female experience. We work really hard so that we can be noticed. And then unless we come out and tell everybody in big neon signs, hey, notice me, nobody notices us. And that seems to be the experience of Agnes.
And Agnes is the one who, she orchestrates her and Rose leaving. And they leave in such a way, it even says in the play, and this is true, no one can find them, which is ridiculous. In 1936 Ireland, how far can they get in, a day that they can't be found? When you've got friends in Ireland, in England, in Ireland, and in America to try to help find them. So Agnes has this insanely rich inner life that, we don't get to see. And which is, again, so Chekhovian, And I always think about when the Tony Awards, when the play went to New York and Tony Awards, the actress who played Agnes is the one who won Best Supporting
in the 90s.
Actor.
This play was the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
It was written in 1990.
And I saw it. I was so lucky that I got to see it.
You saw the original production back in 1990?
I did, yeah. Well, my aunt in Ireland saw the original production in Ireland.
Holy cow!
And her story of it, and I always remember
Bury
this.
the lead, Annette.
Oh, was it the lead? Okay. I also have connections to Brian Friel, but I'll talk about it later. She says she's the first, and she, very artsy person, sees lots of plays. The only time she's ever seen a show where she forgot she was watching a play, she says. She felt so enveloped in the story that she completely forgot she was in the theater, and wasn't sitting there
remarkable.
With her relatives.
Yeah, when that happens, that's a remarkable
And
experience.
when they jump, and she says, like when they start dancing, she says, "Oh, I wanted to leap up and just join them." I just wanted to run up and dance with them.
Holy cow!
And so I remember her telling me this on the phone because we didn't have internet then, and going to see it myself.
You must have been 14 years old.
Oh, you're so kind. Yes, I was. And feeling the same way, like seeing that. And I feel like, and it's so funny because we talk about the dance. In my memory, talk about memory shifting. In my memory, the dance of Dancing Lughnasa happened at the end, like close to the end of the show, but it doesn't. It happens very early on.
It's sooner than you think. Yeah.
Which we were talking about, like, why does it happen so early? But what I think is why you see that explosion of energy and suppression and coming out. You see that early on in the play, so you know that it's there. So the whole play is just informed by what is under the surface for these women, what is also bubbling, and then you can see it coming out. Like I said, sometimes it's like a little like a soft breeze, and sometimes it's an explosion, and sometimes it's a jet of hot steam. Like, how do you see all of that's bubbling under the surface? Where is that coming out in the rest of the play? And you see that in like the jealousies that happen, sometimes they bite at each other, but that is immediately smoothed over. And so I think that's why the dance happens so early in the play. So you can know really going on with
And
these,
then it's a
these
constant
women.
threat of happening again. There's a sense of what's being repressed and what
Right.
it could potentially happen again in an even bigger way, maybe.
Yeah. And the joy of it too, like knowing that, because the dance is an explosion of suppression and stuff like that, but it also is such a moment of love and camaraderie with the sisters,
Can I ask you to just imagine for me
Connection,
what must this say about Friel? And because it is a memory play, and we sort of assume that he's writing about his own personal experiences with this family. I wonder what it must say about the observation skills of a young boy to see all of that and to notice the subtext and the bitter, rivalries in the middle of all this crazy love and mad hate and I wonder what it says about him that he picked up on all of that
He
at
was
such a young
watching,
age.
Like the boy in the play, who is Brian Friel. It's not, making a mistake about that. Is the quiet watcher, is watching everything, is observing anything. Your children are seen and not heard. Well, this child is listening and watching. And maybe as an adult, you make up your own stories to fill in the gaps. But how you felt watching them remains, right? So that stays true. You might, I don't know, was it Maya Angelou says you might not forget, you might not know what people said to you, but you remember how they make you feel. So he might not remember what the words were said, but you'll remember what that moment, meant to him, as a young child.
And that's
how that
probably true for the
influenced him,
audience too. I think there's your own experience notwithstanding, I think there's an opportunity for audiences to come away really remembering the feeling of this family.
Yeah. I think that's what that all these years, how many years later, seeing that original production, it is that feeling of seeing that dance that stays with me.
Can we shift gears just a little bit and talk about those accents?
The dialects.
The dialects.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine was it hard, easy? Did it slipping into that?
It's funny for me because I feel like it was harder for me.
Yeah.
Because I have my family's dialects in my head. I have their voices in my head, and it's not the right dialect.
Oh no.
For the region. So I was like, and I've always actually been terrible at doing Irish accents. I don't know what it is. I grew up with them in my ears, and I just and my family would give out to me because they'd say, "Come on, do it," and I'd be like, "Nope," because I knew they would give me such crap about it. We had a very good dialect coach, and it's hard because Donegal, that area of Donegal, it's Northern Ireland, but it's not like the Ulster. It's not like Derry, that kind of, that has that very weird turns of vowels in Scottish. So it's
almost incomprehensible. It's
actually
very
soft, very musical dialect. So you don't the O's and the E's and all that stuff get turned. Instead of saying Ireland, you say Ireland.
Yeah.
Instead of house is house. That kind of thing.
Are you feeling comfortable with it?
I am. But every once in a while, I think we still are going like, we'll say a line like, "Yes, that wasn't right." We'll know. But practice, right? It was actually really fun though to work on. I have to say.
Yeah.
To have like a real assignment to
Well, your dialect coach Brandon Burke, I think, is a genius.
Yeah, he's terrific.
A wonderful teacher.
Yeah, I wish he was here with us all the time. But
Yeah,
we do too. He's worked with us on anytime we do a show that involves dialects.
He's our go-to.
Australian, Italian, Australian, Irish, the English with When the Rain Stops Falling.
Yeah. X as well, right?
And X as well. Yeah, he's pretty.
Indecent. Yeah.
He's pretty smart.
Yeah. Oh, indecent.
Oh, indecent. Just 12 different
that was
accents in that one.
with the 5 different people helping us with the Yiddish.
Yeah.
That was a major thing.
Yeah. Well, from what I've seen, it sounds like everyone has really landed.
you guys
But I have to
Great.
thank you too to have someone to help us with that. That had to have a dramaturg and to have a dialect coach is just sort of like unique in the world of smaller theaters. So that was just a joy. I'm going to throw my hand up. Like if you ever need dramaturg in training, I am your man because
you know what?
I love it.
Oh, really?
I do. I actually did a course at NYU, and then
Leia is heading off. Leia is heading off to.
She might pass you the baton.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So we may need those shoes filled at some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's terrific. I'm like, oh gosh,
she's really thorough. Did she teach you anything you didn't know already?
Oh, so much stuff about like music and like types of dance and Irish history and specifics about economics and things about the play itself and the research she did. Yeah, it was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
When I was creating, you remember when that first day we worked together, and I was looking really to see how everybody moved. You remember we kind of had like a movement kind of workshop-y type thing. I used her dramaturgy packet, and she had listed everything that was mentioned about dance from the perspective of each character.
Each character and each yes.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, this is very useful. Now I don't have to go through the play and do this myself. It's, otherwise you spend hours and hours and hours of doing that type of work so that you can get those little sound bites of information. Mm-hmm. So a dramaturg just brings that all together so that you have more time and space to work on the task that you were assigned to.
I know.
I'm a recent convert. It's really only been in this past season where I've really, really embraced just the value of that work, and you're living proof of it. And if she taught you something.
Yeah, for sure. And plus the joy of being able to go to a source and go I find out the information that way.
Well, and even
it was
if
fun. It was really great to actually work with her, and I just really admire her so much. And
well, you may get a call from a Public Fit to put your dramaturg shoes on when we lose
dust off those 3 credits
Leia at the end of this year.
When. Yeah.
I don't know what you have next on the docket, but I don't want to miss. You mentioned that you had a connection to Brian Friel.
A weird little connection, not me personally, but my family. So apparently, Brian Friel, his first play was Philadelphia, Here I Come.
Yep.
Right? Which went to Broadway. It was from he went from just his first play in Ireland to Broadway. Crazy.
Such a dumb title. I'm sorry, Brian. It's just such a dumb title.
So
I'm a title snob. I'm sorry. Philadelphia, Here I Come.
I'm totally glaring at you.
I know, glare
Who the hell
away.
Are you
but
to criticize Brian Friel?
Who am I to interrupt Annette's story with my bullshit? Sorry.
But so the play, there's twins in the play, and he wrote twins because he knew twin guys, 2 actors. One was maybe not such an actor, and one of them was a friend of my uncle's. And so in the original production in Ireland, of course, the 2 twin guys were in the show. But when it went to Broadway, of course, they wanted to get real actors, quote unquote real actors, or actually not quote unquote, but real actors.
Sure.
And so apparently this gentleman, Tom, was apparently miffed that he didn't get to go on Broadway, but it was from my uncle. So I think he was an academic, I think so.
Oh, I love it.
Still. But it's great because it was just to think of this guy, Brian Friel starting with just a bunch of his friends, let's put on a show. Here, I wrote this, let's do that. And then the next thing you know, it's on Broadway,
Yeah, when I was researching him, he had his own group of people.
Yeah.
Much like here in the U.S. when, in the early 1900s, they had the group with Elia Kazan and Clifford Odets and all of those ones who were really working on modern realism. He had his own group.
Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't give people enough reason to come see this play, then nothing will. That seems like plenty for me. A big thank you to actor Annette Houlihan Verdolino and choreographer Anne-Marie Pereth, giving us the inside scoop on Dancing at Lughnasa by Brian Friel. Quick reminder, this production is in association with Vegas Theater Company and opens April 12th for a 3-weekend run downtown at their space at the Art Square Theater. We're really just in it for the conversations. And if you enjoy these chats as much as we do, how about a quick review or a 1-click rating or something to help affix us to the internet firmament? Your feedback really does help us decide on future programming, seasons, and guests. Or alternately, you can reach us through our email, behindthebuzz@apublicfit.org. Join the conversation. There's so much to talk about. Behind the Buzz is a product of a public fit theater company. It is directed by Anne-Marie Pereth and me, Joe Kucan, and is recorded, mixed, and edited by the rigorously tested Diane Walton.